Summation of what she said is something akin to this.
Have you ever had a dream that you had you could do so?
But this is actually the stance that they're taking.
All right, friends, are we in a recession or what? Because I'm hearing the news coming from many different facets, supposedly confirming that it is highly possible, based on the numbers, that we are in serious trouble. I have a video here that is going to help us have somewhat of a balanced perspective. His name is Liberal Hive Mind. I just found out about this YouTuber just a couple of days ago. Very intelligent, very balanced, but nevertheless, let's listen to the perspective of what is being talked about here regarding recession. And I think we certainly need to address a number of things as we dive into this. Without further ado, let's get to it.
Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Oh man, you know the Biden administration is getting in some serious trouble with their messaging, if even the left-wing White House press correspondents are hammering them. And man, today was an incredibly embarrassing moment for Karine Jean-Pierre and the rest of these White House goons, even Joe Biden, who appeared remotely. Every single one of them getting grilled about the definition of recession, and while leftists do what leftists do, if the term don't fit, then redefine the term. Of course, you know, when it comes to basic biology and the definition of a man and a woman, doesn't exactly fit the left-wing narrative. And so what do leftists do? Well, they redefine the term entirely. We've seen them do this many times, and now, apparently...
That is actually a true statement, which is actually really disturbing. And that's been part of the discussion we've had on this channel on several occasions. It's just that, why are they weaponizing words or redefining terminologies in order to suit their ideology? These are questions that I'm asking, and I'm wondering, where is this thing going?
The Biden White House is trying to do that exact same thing, redefine what a technical recession means, as they continue to cope, continue to deny reality, because they know what we've known for a while, what I've been reporting on for a while. We already are in a recession. And the way they're acting right now in such denial, well, I'd say it probably confirms that they probably have the inside scoop that Thursday's GDP report isn't going to be so hot. And they're already preparing to shift their messaging and to flat out lie to try to save face as much as possible. Let's continue.
So according to the GDP report, that's what's going to confirm whether or not we are in a recession. So what was considered a recession is being reinterpreted, redefined now in order to cover up what they possibly think. I mean, why will they be doing that? Are the questions that I'm asking. For me, you know, I'm a free thinker. I have not claimed to be with either side, but I lean somewhat toward the conservative side because of my biblical views. But one thing that I'm realizing is the Democrats are beginning to look somewhat really bad with the things that they are doing, which I am not understanding this version of Democrats at all. Not at all. Not from the way I was told, but from what I'm seeing today. It's really strange. Anyway,
to analyze the absolutely abysmal messaging coming out of this White House. We got some stuff to get into, folks, so let's roll the tape. All right, folks, so take a look at the copium, and it's not even just copium, it's incoherent copium.
Next week's a very big week for the economy, so I read the CEA blog. Is the White House trying to change the common definition of a recession because next Thursday the GDP numbers coming out are going to show that we've been in a recession?
So let me say this.
By the way, Karine Jean-Pierre is a Haitian descent. So for those of you who know, I was born and raised in Haiti. So it's like a little bit of Haitian pride, wants to say, yay, we got a black girl in that position, which is actually really nice to watch. But let's put the ethnicity stuff aside for a minute and let's talk about real issues. So well, I think it's an amazing achievement that we have a Haitian now in that position. But it doesn't mean anything if the country is dying, and things are being covered up. That really means nothing. Anyway, let's keep going.
Because next Thursday, the GDP numbers coming out are going to show that we've been in a recession.
So let me say this, you know, the strength of our labor market, along with the other economic factors, is what we generally see in a recession or even a is not what we generally see in a recession or even a pre-recession, because we're seeing the strength of the economy and the labor market. So that's really important to note there, because those are key elements as we talk about that, as folks keep asking us about that. So Americans across the country are back to work at a historic level.
The summation of what she said is something akin to this.
Is she for real?
Have you ever had a dreams that you had you could do so?
But this is actually the stance.
That is actually true. She did not necessarily address the question that was asked. She simply proposed another narrative that seems to be a positive argument to conflict the question that she was asked. It's a very smart way. She's a very intelligent girl. We have to give her credit for that. Intelligent in a way to avoid certain things and not to properly address certain things. I will say I know it's a difficult position to be, because you're going to be asked difficult questions. But I think you got to be honest enough to acknowledge that when we are failing, and we just need to make the necessary changes, right? But anyway, I just love this little kid. I want to hear that again.
Summation of what she said is something akin to this.
Have you ever had a dreams that you could do so?
But this is actually the stance that they're taking. We know the technical definition of a recession. We know what it looks like. It's been declared in the exact same way for decades. But with the Biden administration, they're actually trying to play this angle. Take a look at this from Biden advisor Gene Sperling.
You know, there's discussion over the weekend, Janet Yellen sort of saying, well, if you have 2 quarters of contracting GDP growth, not necessarily a recession. I covered the economy for many years. I was told by everybody I spoke to that 2 negative quarters, 2 contracting quarters, means that the economy is in a recession. Do you believe that? Is that what you ascribe to?
That is not the actual definition of a recession. It is a significant...
What do you mean it's not the actual definition of recession? That's the definition that has been on the foundation for such a long time. Why is it all of a sudden different?
Contractionary period over a few months.
They are actually denying the technical definition of a recession because they're hoping to avoid the inevitable, which is the Biden recession. Of course, they don't want that before the midterms, but they don't want that at all. And so instead of face reality, they're delusional and living on another planet. The Biden administration says, well, that's not really the definition of a recession. Really, 2 consecutive quarters of GDP contraction isn't the definition of a recession. Well, then where does this come from?
Thursday, that first reading of second quarter GDP, there's a possibility this is a negative number. 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth.
The definition of a recession is a decline in output for 2 consecutive quarters, or about 6 months.
A recession is just 2 consecutive quarters of economic decline.
When we talk about the possibility of a recession, what is a recession? A recession is 2 consecutive quarters.
2 consecutive quarters.
2 consecutive quarters.
So if this has been the general definition that is respected and known for so long, why all of a sudden it is no longer the proper definition? These are questions that I'm asking as the guy who is standing outside of the building here, and I'm like, what is going on here from outside looking in? Like, why aren't we being honest with the American people? Why are we covering this up? Is this because of election? Is it because that we refuse to acknowledge that things are falling apart? Or is it because that we just refuse to be honest that Joe Biden and the administration have not been doing a good enough job? If we own up to this mistake, we can probably fix the problem. We can face it and make a difference. But if we keep on making excuses, it creates a much bigger vacuum for greater problems down the road. And it's gonna look even worse for not just the administration. We're gonna look at the American, us. We are going to pay a much larger price than we could actually afford. And this is problematic to me, if you were to ask me.
2 consecutive quarters of declining GDP.
Because as you know, it's 2 consecutive quarters of down GDP.
That signals it is actually a definition of a recession.
I mean, the most common definition of a recession, 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth.
Even if we don't have 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth, we might have 1 quarter of growth so deep that it's classified as a recession.
Denial, denial. And of course, it's all over the White House. Biden was questioned as well, and take a look what he said here.
And Mr. President, we're getting GDP numbers on Thursday. How worried should Americans be that we could be in a recession?
We're not going to be in a recession, in my view. The employment rate is still one of the lowest we've had in history. It's in the 3.6 area. We still find ourselves with people investing. My hope is we go from this rapid growth to steady growth. And so we'll see some coming down. But I don't think we're going to, God willing, I don't think we're going to see a recession.
We're not going to be in.
But how do you say that with all the evidence that's on the table? How are we supposed to believe that when I'm paying almost double the price for gas and the food that I used to put on the table for my children? Why am I working extra hours? Why am I working overtime to make a living if this is not the case? To me, it sounds like gaslighting. It's like, I know what I know, and I see what I see, and live what I live. But what is he talking about? No disrespect to the man. No disrespect to Mr. Biden. My prayers are with him. I wish him well. But let's be honest. This is incorrect.
In a recession. They're saying this when most likely the data that they have access to behind the scenes is confirming a recession. Why else would they be trying to change the definition of a recession? It doesn't make any sense at all. Clearly, they're trying to get ahead of Thursday's report. And just take a look at how far they're going. This is an actual post from whitehouse.gov. What is a recession? While some maintain that 2 consecutive quarters of falling real GDP constitutes a recession, that is neither the official definition nor the way economists evaluate the state of the business cycle.
This is very telling, though. So is this being used as a mean to redirect and redefine something that we know to be true? Now, that is very disturbing that they will put a new definition on the whitehouse.gov to cover up something that most people are beginning to be concerned about, and rightfully so. It causes you to wonder.
Instead, both official determinations of recession and economists' assessment of economic activity are based on a holistic look at the data, including the labor market, consumer and business spending, industrial production, and incomes. Based on these data, it is unlikely that the decline in GDP in the first quarter of this year, even if followed by another GDP decline in the second quarter, indicates a recession. And now, I'm going to put my money down that this statement right over here is going to age like old milk, especially because their defense isn't even really all that solid. They're claiming that the labor market, consumer markets, business spending, industrial production, and incomes are going to carry the economy through. But the labor market, from what we're seeing, is possibly taking a hit. The consumer is definitely not in good shape. Consumer confidence is at the lowest it's ever been. And we're possibly entering an earnings recession. We're going to have to see some of the financial statements that are released this week and just going forward, especially in the next quarter. Industrial production is down as well, and real incomes in relation to inflation are also down. The reality is, we're not going to see the true impacts of 2 quarters of negative GDP probably till the third quarter, or at least the winter heading.
So it's not like they don't know we are in a recession. They just don't want to admit it so early. Is that really what's going on? So there is a knowledge that things aren't working out. Things are not in a place that they should be. But there is a refusal to acknowledge these are the facts. And my question is, why not acknowledge it now so we can address it before things get worse? That's what I'm thinking.
Into 2023. Are we in a recession? Probably. Are they going to announce the recession right now? No, probably not. Probably in the winter. So I guess technically we're not in a real recession, but we pretty much are. These people are full of shit. excuse my French, and everything they're claiming as indicating that the economy is incredibly strong is very, very misleading. In fact, everything about this administration is misleading. I want to say that Joe Biden's the one that's doing the misleading, but Joe Biden, of course, is just the puppet. I don't think...
There we go. Good point. If oftentimes we want to blame Mr. Joe for everything that's going wrong, but Joe doesn't call all the shots. We know there are other factors, there are other leaders behind the scene that are pulling the strings and making things happen, and it's good to acknowledge that. I really appreciate the fact he takes the time to do that in this segment here. Very smart. Well done. Isn't that right? All right, let's keep going.
Think any of this has anything to do with Biden. Not to give him an escape or an excuse or anything, but of course we know he's just an empty shell of his former self. The guy's not all there and he's just a vessel for the real shadowy figures behind him actually running the show. And his Twitter feed is one of the biggest disasters ever. Take a look at some of these tweets. So out of touch it's not even funny. Gas prices have declined by an average of 60 cents per gallon over the past 38 days. 5 straight weeks of gas prices coming down. He then updates that, or rather his staffers update that. Make that 65 cents down over 40 days. Whoa.
They are silly. Sometimes I wonder, is it really Joe Biden posting these posts or somebody else is? I don't even think he knows how to use these things. Well, he has, I'm pretty sure, a secretary. But anyway, it's so weird.
65 cents from a high of $5 a gallon. The administration then releases this tweet, which is getting slammed on Twitter. For American families looking for a little bit more breathing room, get ready for this breathing room, folks. At current prices, the average driver will spend $35 less per month for one person. They couldn't even bother to spell check and write person. Or $70 less per month for a family with 2 cars than they would if gas prices stayed at their peak. I mean, is that some massive victory? Americans are still paying, based on economic data that we've covered, anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 more a year, not only on gas prices, but on everything, while making less money. And Joe Biden is taking a victory lap because you're spending $35 less a month. Based on the previous peak, what he's essentially saying is, well, at least things aren't bad as they were when they were worst case scenario a month ago. Not to mention, he's taking a victory lap for what? A slowing down economy? I mean, pretending as if gas prices are going down because of his actions is a complete farce. What's really happening is demand destruction. What's really happening is the economy is slowing down. People are just unable to afford moving around.
There we go. That is really what's happening, and it's true. Even our family, we are very careful with gas prices right now. We are very careful with even how we drive and places we go, because we realize, hey, if we don't have to go anywhere, we just don't go. Because it's just like, we don't have the money to keep spending on things that we cannot afford. And as an American, the stuff that he's talking about here are very, very true, because we all live in that. You know, they're talking one thing in gaslighting, denying, and reconstructing and redefining things. We're saying we live in it, bro. We live in it. We are an example of what is happening, and we know how things were before, and we know how things are today. You can't lie to me. You can't keep lying to us like that.
People are taking their bikes. Manufacturing is down. Business is down. Just activity is down in general within the economy. Of course, the increase in interest rates from the Fed are having a big impact as well. And so demand for energy is down. Therefore, prices are going down. Name a single action that Joe Biden has taken that has actually reduced gas prices, other than the 2-cent price drop after releasing the strategic oil reserves. Well, I'll be waiting here all day because obviously he's done nothing. Everything that he has done has increased prices. And even his most recent Saudi Arabia debacle begging them to produce more oil, which failed and blew up in his face. Even when Joe Biden tries to do something like getting on his knees and begging the Saudis, it ends up resulting in gas prices increasing because of his humiliation on the foreign policy world stage. Out of this world, stupid and out of touch. It's just on another level. And the way these admin officials are just talking in circles right now. Actually, here's another one. Joe Biden's economic advisor, Brian Deese.
What will be comments from some saying 2 quarters of negative growth in a row, that's a recession.
Right, and certainly in terms of the technical definition, it's not a recession. The technical definition considers a much broader spectrum of data points.
The way they're just talking in circles and saying what you're seeing is not actually what you're seeing, and the real definition of a recession isn't actually the definition of a recession, shows you exactly how dishonest and untrustworthy these people.
Yeah, it's very similar. It's the same argument that the gender ideology has been saying. What is a woman? A woman is a woman, you know. A circular definition kind of thing. So, you know, just totally ignore the basic biology, the truth that goes in the evidence that is right in our face. And we say, let's ignore all of that. Let's put a new definition to the term because it suits our perspective and it suits our narrative. We can't have that.
Really are. All we're seeing is a bunch of desperate, delusional political hacks. All we're seeing is hopium and copium. Biden earlier saying that his hope is that we go from this to rapid growth to steady growth. I mean, literal hopium. No facts, not the reality of what's going on, just hopium. The same thing on inflation. Well, we think probably inflation has peaked. Janet Yellen saying a recession isn't inevitable. It's nothing but hopium, copium, lies, and desperate, out-of-touch elitist weirdos who are clearly panicking as everything around them falls apart and they're somehow trying to shift or change the messaging. Game over, Biden. Your days are numbered. That, however, is what I got for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and if you did, make sure to leave a like. I'm gonna get back to work. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.
Well done. Well done. Guys, what is your perspective? Are we in a recession, yes or no? Or are we headed down that road? Question number 2. Why do you think the Biden administration is so bent on redefining the term of recession, which was well known and respected as two negative GDP? So with that knowledge, why are they so determined to change that? I really want to hear your input on that. Where do you think this is going? And my next question is, what do we do to fix that as a country? What would you recommend that the average? So my question is, are they doing that? Where do they plan on taking this? And what do we do to fix this as a country? These are the questions I'm asking. How do you address the issue of a recession? And I think there are many factors that goes into play, but I think, again, the administration at this stage is not being very honest with the people, and that is a problem, a serious problem. But I tell you, it is always best to address something early than when it is too late. We are told in the book of Solomon, look what it says in Solomon chapter 2. Read down verse 15. It says, take us the foxes, the little foxes that spoil the vine, for our vines have tender grapes. Oh man, this is an amazing typology, analogy of figure of speech that we are looking at from scripture. What the Bible is referring to, these foxes, they have the ability, even though they may be little, but they can eventually spoil the vine. So if we can get the foxes out of there soon enough, we can preserve our tender grapes. And the analogy is simply this. Small steps, little trouble, neglected issues can create bigger ones. It is always best to address it early enough before things get worse. That's the ideology. And friends, do we need to address things today? Do we need to confront and make a difference today? Talk to those in power, giving counsels and raise our voice against what is wrong? Yes, we do. But I'm also a realist. I'm also biblical minded. Things will get worse before they get better. Ultimately, the kingdom of God is coming. But we still have a duty to speak up, to raise our voice, to contend, to do what is best to preserve the blessings that God has given us here in the land, to be a blessing to those around us. Until next time, remember to look unto Jesus, to live by faith, Let's comment below. Let's talk below. Answer some of my questions. I really want to hear your perspective. Until next time, I'll see you on the next one.